Hello, welcome to a new session for this online course on Introduction to Embedded System Design. So, in this configuration, if we have the transistor, you want the transistor to handle more amount of current, then you can use what is called as a Darlington pair, where you use two transistor to multiply the beta, and this is the typical configuration of a Darlington pair here. This becomes your collector, this becomes your base, and this becomes your emitter. Here is the Darlington pair. We use two transistors, and the effective gain, the current gain of this transistor, if this is the gain beta 1 is the gain of the first transistor and this is the current gain of the second transistor, the effective gain becomes beta 1 into beta 2. And so, this configuration can handle much larger current. However, please note that now the base emitter voltage is no longer VBE, it is VBE 1 for the first transistor plus VBE 2 for the second transistor, and therefore, if you are going to use a Darlington pair in that power supply configuration, the V out has to overcome this, and so the output voltage of the op amp will be such that it overcomes this requirement. And so, if I am going to use this power supply configuration and I want more current, which a single transistor may not provide me the required current gain, I could use this Darlington pair. However, still this power supply suffers from an inability to provide against any short circuiting attempt at the output, and so we must build in some mechanism so that short at the output does not end up destroying the power supply, and the way it is achieved is through this circuit here, through the introduction of this transistor T2. This ensures that the current is never going to exceed a certain amount. In this case, the maximum current that this power supply will provide is equal to VBE of transistor T2 divided by the value of R2. So, if this voltage is say 0.7 volts, and if you choose R2 to be 1 ohm, that means this power supply can provide 700 milliamperes of current. What happens if you short it? If I short this power supply, yes, the current will try to exceed 700 milliamperes, at which point it will enable T2, it will turn T2 on, and it will provide an alternative path for the current from the op amp. Instead of going into T1 and getting magnified by a factor of beta, which would lead to the destruction of T1, it would divert the current. Instead of going into T1, it would carry it through this, and since it would not be magnified by a factor of beta, it would protect the power supply. So, this is a standard method of short circuit protection. 3 terminals regulators of the type that we have been discussing, the 78XXX series. I have illustrated 2 simple regulator configuration. One is a 7805. You see, these are the additional components that you require apart from the regulator, a couple of capacitors at the input and output and nothing else, maybe an indicator to indicate that the power supply is on with the help of this resistor here and LED. This is a simple 5 volt linear regulator. In case you want the output voltage to be other than what a fixed output voltage regulator such as 7805 can provide. For example, in fact this is a complete series, you get 7805, then you also have 7806, you have 7809, you have 7812 and so on, 780515, and in fact there is also a counterpart of for negative voltages, which is 79 series. If you want an voltage for example of 9.5 volts, then you can utilize this 3 terminal adjustable voltage regulator, where it uses this formula V out is equal to 1.25 volts, which is the reference voltage inside this, and R3 by ratio of R3 by R4 here, R3 and R4, and you can tailor R3 and R4 values to give you whatever arbitrary voltage within the range of output voltages that are available with this adjustable 3 terminal voltage regulator. This number is LM317, and this gives you an adjustable output voltage with a current of maximum of 1 ampere. This could be used, but as I mentioned, these are all of the past. These days people do not use traditional 7/8 series of voltage regulators for the problems that I mentioned, that they require a large dropout voltage and they require a large quiescent current. Instead, people are using low dropout voltage regulators, and I have already mentioned the characteristics that they offer: a low voltage of 0.1 volt dropout and about 10 to 100 microamperes of quiescent current. Here are some examples. If you want to power a 5 volt or a 3 volt or a 2.7 volt circuit, you can use LP2950. This comes in various versions which provide 2.7 or 3 or 3.3, even 5 volt output. Another adjustable voltage regulator of the LDO variety is LP38500, and this requires a 0.6 volt dropout voltage, which is still much lesser than the 3 volts that a 7/8 series requires. Now, linear regulators are great, they are simple to use, but one of the big problems is that they are very wasteful. If your battery is say 12 volts lead acid battery and you want to power your circuit at 5 volts, so the linear voltage would get a difference voltage of about 7 volts, and if your system is consuming 1 ampere of power, let me illustrate this. This is an important point here. So, if I am using a 7/8 or linear regulator of whatever type, irrespective of whether it is a LDO or a traditional 7/8 series, I have, let us say this is a 5 volt regulator, 5 volt linear regulator. And let us say I want my load here, whatever the load is consuming 5 volt at a maximum of 1 ampere of current that it is expected to consume. And let us say my source is a battery, which is a lead acid 12 volt battery. Even if I do not consider any quiescent current being consumed by the power supply regulator, still the difference of this and this is 7 volts, and it is going to provide the battery is going to be you are going to take off 1 ampere of current from the battery. Therefore, the power supply has to dissipate 7 volt into 1 ampere, which is equal to 7 watt as heat, because you only are going to consume 5 volts at 1 ampere. And so, a linear regulator is not a very preferred method of powering portable applications which use a battery. What are alternatives? That instead of linear regulators, we use switching regulators. Switching regulators, as against the linear regulators where the active elements operate in the linear forward active region, the elements which make up a switching regulator do not operate in the linear region, forward active region. They are either turned on or turned off, meaning they are either saturated or cut off, and this leads to a high efficiency. Typical efficiency figures that you may expect is of the order of 90%. The disadvantage is that to give you this efficiency and to operate in the switching mode, it requires an external inductor. It requires a switching diode, which in some cases could be integrated on the power supply chip, and it also requires a high current switch which can turn itself on and off. Other requirements are that it requires output capacitors to filter the noise that would come, because now your regulating elements are switching on and off. You require a capacitor, but this has to be a special type of capacitor called low ESR. ESR stands for equivalent series resistance. If the series resistance of a capacitor is large, it would prohibit the capacitor from quickly stabilizing the voltage, because the R and C time constant would slow it down, and so you need capacitors which are qualified as low ESR. Even after filtering the output voltage, you still have relatively large output noise compared to a linear regulator, and the type of the switching regulator that you use would depend on what is the input voltage that is available and what the output voltage that you expect. There are of three primary types. One is called buck voltage regulator, where the word buck means to bend, that is, the output voltage is less than the input voltage. In some cases you can use a boost type of voltage regulator, where you can, if your input is say 1.5 volts alkaline battery and you want 3 volts output, you would use a boost regulator. This is a great advantage because linear regulators cannot perform this function. They cannot increase the output voltage more than the input, but a switching regulator can, especially in which case you will have to use this boost type of regulator. In case your battery voltage could be more than the output required sometimes, and sometimes it can fall below the required output, you would need a regulator of the type called buck boost. In buck voltage, the output voltage is less than the input, but the output current is more than the input current. And this is the topology of the circuit topology of a buck regulator. This is the buck controller. You need one switch here and a switching diode. This is a D1 is a switching diode. This is the inductor. Unfortunately, you cannot integrate an inductor on a chip. You can integrate this transistor, you can integrate this diode, but the inductor cannot be integrated. So, inductor and this output capacitor which I mentioned, low ESR capacitor, have to be still outside. Here is an example of a commercially available complete integrated switching regulator, LM2575. You still need this switching diode and an inductor, and it will reduce the output voltage compared to the input voltage and do it very efficiently. In case you need the output voltage to be more than the input voltage, then you use a boost type of voltage regulator, where the output voltage, as you see here, is more than the input voltage, but then the output current is less than the input current, because at the end of the day power has to be conserved. If the input voltage is less than the output voltage, the input current will be more, significantly more, so that the product of input current and input voltage is little bit more than the product of output voltage and output current. Here is an example. This is the topology of switching regulator, boost type switching regulator. It still uses an inductor, it still uses a switching diode, and it still uses a high current switch, except the location of these three components has changed, and this is the low ESR capacitor. Here is a available example. In fact, TPS 61070 is a switching boost type of switching regulator available from Texas Instruments, and using a 1.5 volt battery you can get say 5 volt or 3.3 volts, which is suitable to power your small embedded applications. Another example is you could use linear technology LT1308, where the input can be in the range of 1 to 10 volts and can provide output voltage up to 34 volts, and the switching current can be up to 3 amperes. Switching current means the current that it uses at the input, it is not the output current. The third regulator type of switching regulator is the buck boost. As the name suggests, it can operate either as in the buck mode or the boost mode, depending upon what is expected at the output and at that time what is the input voltage. For example, if the output voltage requirement is say 3.3 volts and the input voltage is 6 volts, the regulator will switch in the buck mode. If the voltage falls below 3.3 volt, the regulator will seamlessly switch into the boost mode, so that from 3 volts input it can continue to provide 3.3 volt power supply. Typically, this is the situation in your smartphones and mobile phones, where the source of energy is a battery. The nominal voltage of this battery is 3.6 volts. When it is fully charged, it can be as high as 4.2 volts, and you can safely discharge this battery up to 3 volts. And the required output voltage could be 3.3 volts as one of the voltage requirements of a microcontroller. So, if you are going to regulate this voltage, this battery voltage, you have to use a buck boost regulator, so that when the battery is fully charged, the regulator operates in the buck mode. As the battery gets discharged and tries to fall below 3.3 volts, the regulator seamlessly switches into the boost mode and continues to supply 3.3 volts. Here is an example, and here is before that, here is the topology of a buck boost controller. Now it has merged the two components of buck and boost. So, you have twice the number of high current switches, two switching diodes and only one inductor, and based on the requirement it would either switch Q1 and D1 or Q2 and D2 depending upon whether it is the buck mode or the boost mode, and maintain the output voltage to required values. Here is a commercially available example of a buck boost regulator. This is LM3668, originally from National Semiconductors, but National Semiconductors is today a part of the Texas Instruments, and so this is being produced by Texas Instruments. It has input voltage range of 2.5 to 5.5 volts. The output is fixed, either you can choose a 2.8 output or 3.3, and the output maximum output current you can draw out of this buck boost regulator is 1 volt. So, here we have considered the three common topologies for switching regulators, which could be very common, which would be very commonly used in embedded applications. Here is an example of a cell phone charger, where you take the input voltage from the source, which could be 100 to 240 volts, and you still provide 5 volt output, but with a the output and input are isolated using this optocoupler. I am not going to go into the design of this, but this ensures a very efficient power supply for charging the batteries in such portable applications. Now, I have put together a list of various topologies, including the source and the regulator and so on. So, one option could be you use a line frequency transformer. When I use the word line frequency, means 50 or 60 hertz to drop down the voltage, followed by a linear regulator which could be fixed or variable. You could have that, but use a switching regulator, buck or boost. You could have a completely switching power supply, as I showed in the previous slide. You could have a capacitive attenuator, meaning instead of using any transformer at the input, you could use capacitors to attenuate and then have a Zener regulator. You could use an alkaline battery followed by a buck or boost topology based on your voltage requirements. You could use a lithium battery with a boost to give you 5 volts. You could use lithium battery with buck boost to give you 3.3. For 5 volt output, you only need boost because the battery voltage is never going to exceed 5 volts. So, a boost type of switching regulator is sufficient. If you want a power supply which is 5 volts plus 3.3 volts, the source of power is lithium, then you would use boost for 5, and then using a buck or a LDO, you could get 3.3 from either directly from the lithium or from the boost. You could use at the output of the boost regulator, you could use a LDO to give you 3.3 volts. You could use radio frequency transmissions using an antenna, and they are extremely low power, but they are enough for many applications, as is illustrated in a RFID application. You could use a Faraday based generator. You saw two examples of tube with magnet and coil, copper wire coil to produce voltage. This would be rectified and then filtered, and then you would use a appropriate regulator to get stabilized voltage. You could also have a solar panel which would charge a battery followed by a regulator to provide. Another method is using the resonance, the vibration inherent in buildings which have air conditioning. Because of the air conditioning equipment, these buildings are vibrating at certain frequency. There are solutions where you have a power converter which you stick to the wall of these buildings. They are tuned to the frequency at which the building is vibrating, and they provide minuscule amounts of power, but oftentimes this is sufficient for monitoring equipment. And then you could use a thermoelectric based solution, what is called as a TEG, which essentially is a thermocouple or a regulator based on that to power your application. Modern ICs are designed such that the chip is partitioned in several parts. The periphery of the IC often is operated at higher voltages, and the inner parts are operated at higher frequency and therefore lower voltages, so as to maintain a uniform power dissipation across the chip, so as to maintain a uniform power dissipation. Oftentimes they may have a separate analog subsystem, and I have already discussed that, how to power it, and this would require multiple power supply voltages required by such ICs. In the next slide I have taken from the data sheet of a high end Texas Instruments microcontroller, and as you see it requires 3 power supply voltages, 1.1 volts, 1.8 volts and 3.3 volts. And you see the current expected out of these 3 power rails is such that the product is more or less uniform. So that when I have, if I have this IC, usually it will be split in 3 parts: the periphery, the middle path and the core. The core will be operated at the lowest voltage because it is going to operate at highest frequency. The periphery will be operated at highest voltage because it can then provide large noise margin, but it will have to operate at lower frequencies, and the middle one would be an intermediate voltage, and each of these parts consume an amount of current such that the product of current and voltage is pretty much uniform, so that the entire chip dissipates uniform amount of power, so that there are no voltage differences which may lead to thermoelectric effects, or they may produce physical warping in the chip. One solution is to use a linear type of regulator for all the 3 power sources, where the input is a lithium battery, as can be seen here. This is typically a lithium battery voltage, and you see the first power supply would be 30% efficient, the second will be almost 50%, and the last one, where the output voltage is very close to the battery voltage, will give you about 90% of efficiency, and this is not an acceptable solution because you are wasting so much power in these 2 power supply voltages. And the solution is not to replace all the power supplies with switching regulators, because this power supply is already giving you about 90% efficiency. You will not gain much by replacing a linear regulator with a switching regulator, because it may give you better efficiency of 2-3%, but at a much higher cost of additional components. And so an ideal solution would be one in which these 2 power supplies regulators are replaced with switching regulator, and the third one is still maintained at of a linear type. This is the expectation out of a designer when you are designing a complete embedded system. You have to consider the power supply requirements of the microcontroller and other components in your system, and to design voltage regulators compatible with the requirements. Microcontrollers, modern microcontrollers try to conserve available power based on the performance required at any given point of time by at least having 3 modes of operation. One is the active mode, where you are operating at full capacity, full performance, such as in a mobile phone or a smartphone. If you are using it, the microcontroller inside is operating at the highest capability. But when you are not using the mobile phone, it is lying down and you are not receiving any phone call or any SMS, then it tries to save power by switching the display off and so on. And also maybe some internal circuit elements are switched off, the clock's signal to these subsystem is turned off so as to conserve power. And the last mode of operation is power down mode, where the clock oscillator itself is switched off, because clock oscillator is one of the largest power consuming elements in a logic circuit. By turning it off, you can save power if you are not going to use the system. Let me tell you, your mobile phone, whether it is smartphone or your regular non-smart mobile phone, indeed offers these 3 modes of operation. When you are using it, it works in the active mode. When you are not using it, but it is still on and you keep it on your table or somewhere, it is tries to go in the sleep mode. And when you so called switch it off, you think you have switched off the mobile phone. Sorry, mobile phone is never switched off. It only enters this power down mode, and you do not have a on off switch on a mobile phone. The so called on off switch is only a soft switch which only is used to change the mode of operation from active mode to power down mode. In power down mode, your battery is still connected to the microcontroller. The microcontroller is still getting supply voltage, except it is not doing anything. Why? Because the main source of clock, which is responsible for all actions and activities on the microcontroller, has been turned off. And to get back into any of the other modes, sleep or active mode, you have to press that so called on off switch. You have to hold it pressed for much longer duration, which ensures that the oscillator starts oscillating, the oscillations are stabilized, and only then, when the clock oscillator starts working correctly, does it activate rest of the circuitry on your microcontroller, and then it starts working. So these are the modes of operation. These are broadly the 3 modes of operation. A typical microcontroller may offer more varieties in the active mode. It may offer more varieties in the sleep mode and power down mode. In fact, as we will start discussing the MSP430 microcontroller, you will see that it offers many sub modes which would be classified as sleep or power down modes, so that the end user, the designer, has more options to choose from, so as to conserve whatever battery power that is available. At the end, to back up the source, you may need to use certain types of batteries, and these days another alternative is to use supercapacitors. Supercapacitors are ordinary capacitors with huge amounts of capacities. For example, in one of the projects that I showed you, it used a supercapacitor which was a 1 farad 2.5 volts capacitor, and you know the amount of energy that this capacitor is capable of storing. It is equal to 2.5 coulombs, which is a huge. Traditionally, the capacitors that you used in your power supply filtering typically say 1000 microfarad at 25 volts. This is just 25,000 microcoulomb, which is a much smaller fraction compared to the capacity of a supercapacitor. So a supercapacitor could also be used. A supercapacitor is far better than batteries because it has much longer life and it is not as hazardous for disposing compared to a battery. These are the typical commonly available batteries these days that people are using. You need to know the type of battery, the terminal voltage, what is the power versus weight ratio, what is the efficiency, and how many times can you charge and discharge this battery, and this can be an important consideration depending upon the product that you are designing. If you are making a cell phone kind of product, you could perhaps use lithium ion or lithium poly, but if you are going to fly a outer space probe where the lifetime is only few years in these kind of batteries, but your outer space probe may take several years to reach its destination, certainly these type of batteries are unsuitable to power the backup as a backup power in such space probes. So you have to find alternative other types of battery chemistries which may not be as efficient as lithium ion or lithium poly, but they have much longer life cycles. With this we come to the end of this lecture. I will pick up from here. In the next lectures we are going to now get on to understanding the MSP430 microcontroller and the architecture and other issues related to this microcontroller. Thank you very much. I will see you very soon.